Hello, my uncle is retiring this year, and I, a 30-year-old woman, recently lost my job in the family business because I refused to follow him. I want to know whether I'm doing something wrong. For background, my father, who would have turned 63 this year, had two younger brothers, Brian and Scott, who were all 59 and 56 years old respectively, and they all inherited my grandfather's real estate company. He had thought that everything would work out, and the three brothers would manage the business as co-owners. However, 6 years after my grandfather's retirement, my uncle Scott made the decision to leave the company and launch his own venture. And with that, the family also lost contact with him, because competing in the business with his own brothers was a move that nobody liked. Therefore, no one in the family has talked to him or acknowledged his presence for the previous 16 years. And they act as though he never was a member of the family at all. It's something I've learned to do as well. Anyway, double kidney failure claimed my dad's life 3 years ago. Before it happened, his health had not been good, and he had been preparing me to take over in the event that he became bedridden. It was fortunate that I was ready to fill his shoes and assume his responsibilities within the organization, even though nobody had anticipated his death. For the previous 3 years, I hadn't only been carrying out his duties and assisting my Uncle Brian in running the business. Rather, ever since I graduated from business school, I had been working alongside my father and uncle to gain experience in order to eventually become a partner in the company. I have been employed here for about 9 years, and I had naturally anticipated becoming a partner in the company at some point, given that my father had desired that. However, I learned around 10 days ago that my uncle would remain in his position as CFO and that he had chosen to make his son a partner while my dad was still living. My uncle was the CFO and he was the CEO. My uncle became the CEO after his death, and I was given the position of CFO. Thus, because my uncle will be retiring in a few years, if someone was meant to succeed him, shouldn't it be me? I was completely taken aback by this move because my cousin Dean has never even appeared in an image. Just a year ago, at the age of 23, he received his diploma. Despite lacking any actual experience, he holds an economics degree. Above all else, simply put, he is too young to be a partner in the company. He still owes me money. Furthermore, I'm positive that he doesn't deserve it more than I do. Naturally, when I learned about this, I became very angry. My uncle didn't even tell me directly. My mother mentioned that she had recently received information from Dean's mother, her sister-in-law, that I had declined the chance to become a partner in the company, and that my uncle was now extending the offer to Dean. We hadn't had this conversation, so when my mother informed me about it, I believed it was a joke and immediately called my uncle. However, he informed me over the phone that as Dean was due to announce his retirement in a few months, he was seriously considering making Dean the CEO of the business and a partner in the firm. I told him that Dean had never worked a day in his life because I was startled. He has been investigating and getting to know himself for the whole past year. Hence, he lacked experience and was unfit for the position. My uncle then informed me that it seems that I play a role in this because I will be mentoring him and he won't have to worry about anything. Therefore, it's not as though I'm no longer needed by the organization. I will remain the company's CFO, but he still needs me to take care of everything until Dean adjusts. But that did not sit well with me. I informed him that I deserved the respect I was due because I had put in a lot of work over the previous 9 years. I was really unhappy with this choice, and Dean most definitely did not deserve this position. In the event that he chose to promote Dean to partner and CEO of the company, I would also be leaving the company and relinquishing my position. My uncle attempted to comfort me by saying that I was exaggerating, and that he was only taking this action to ensure Dean's future because he refused to accept anything less than the CEO position and did not want to leave the company, unlike my Uncle Scott. He thus thought that I would understand that this was his only choice. He even made an attempt to appease me by claiming that I would be in charge of the business in reality and he would just serve as its ceremonial leader. He was also aware that I would be respected by Dean. I attempted to negotiate with him. He said that he wasn't sure whether he would be able to make me a partner with the company because he needed to speak with Dean first. I told him that I would be happy to settle for my position as CFO. However, I didn't give a damn. He could either do that, or I would be going because I have put in the effort, and I wanted to be the CEO and a partner, or at least merely a partner. My uncle and I got into a heated argument over this ultimatum. He eventually informed me that I could do anything I wanted because we lived in a free nation. But by then he had already made up his mind. He had also addressed this with the board members, and he planned to make his statement in a few days. He had already made up his mind, so I had the option to accept it or to walk away as I had promised. I always believed that my uncle and I had a wonderful relationship. Therefore, it was a terrible day for me to learn the truth about our relationship. But obviously, I had exaggerated our closeness when it came to our professional connection. It's also not shocking. Considering how spoilt Dean has always been, I don't think it's shocking that my uncle picked him over me. Since this is his actual flesh and blood, I could never hope to be competitive. In any case, I was quite disappointed with the outcome, and my mother advised me to even get a lawyer to pursue them in court. But that's not what I wanted to do. I had a better idea though, one that would really annoy them. For those of you who are unaware, I sent my Uncle Scott an email that very day. I'm sure most of you might predict what I did after that. I quickly told him everything that had happened and offered to work for him right away if he wanted me to. I had no desire to laze around feeling sorry for myself. I didn't hesitate to contact my Uncle Scott because I was just thinking about getting even with him at the moment. I heard back from him in less than a day. In a few years after he retired, he stated he would be willing to elevate me to CEO and was prepared to offer me the role of CFO. Since I was ready to share with him everything I knew about my business in order to help him succeed, he had accepted my requirements to become a partner in the company. We eventually had our in-person meeting a few days ago, and it was enjoyable. My parents and other family members had insisted that I break up with him, so that was the only reason I had to do it. I have never really had a poor connection with my Uncle Scott, though. Other from that, he had actually always been the fun uncle, and we had a good relationship up until I was 15. However, after the argument, he was shunned, and I never had the chance to talk to him again until recently. I was never truly told the whole story of Uncle Scott's breakup from the family when I was younger, and he wouldn't talk about it when I met him today. But I had to accept that it was his decision. But he did tell me that he was shocked that my Uncle Brian had managed to pull off anything like this, as my dad would never have thought to attempt something like this while he was alive. Nevertheless, he expressed his happiness that things had gone his way and expressed his desire to have me join the team because he had only heard positive things about me despite the fact that we were practically direct rivals. They had been monitoring us and our activities, and he mentioned that he was aware of the significant work I had done for the company and that he was excited to have me on board again. He also informed me that he was childless, unlike Uncle Brian, so I didn't need to worry about that aspect either. We concluded matters, and I submitted my resignation on the same day. Uncle Brian appeared completely unaffected by my resignation, so I sent him a formal SMS informing him that I would not be available for the next 2 weeks, as he had made it very evident that the company would function smoothly without me. He assured me that he was okay with it, and that I didn't need to worry about my job because he already had substitutes lined up. That concluded things. After that, I didn't talk to him anymore. But yesterday, to commemorate the fact that I was now joining Uncle Scott, we finally shared a photo of us. In order to interact with a few other higher-ups in his company, I went out to dinner with the team prior to my collaboration with them. To say that my family is physically falling apart at the seams would be an understatement, as I have received an inundation of texts, voicemails, and phone calls since publishing the piece yesterday night. Naturally, I haven't responded to anyone, but I can tell that people are furious. Uncle Brian is furious, has already called me a traitor, and has threatened to see to it that I pay the price for this decision. He is welcome to try his hardest. Many other family members have also condemned me, which I find odd because based on the messages they sent, it seems like they already know that the only reason I did all of this was because Dean was chosen for the partnership in the firm, and I did not. However, they have no right to condemn me today if they remained silent about how unfair what was being done to me at the time was. My mother is the only person whose opinion truly matters to me, and she didn't seem pleased with my choice when I spoke to her this morning. That truly surprised me because just a few days prior, she had been pushing for me to pursue my uncle with legal representation in order to obtain what is properly mine. but now she seems to be concerned that I'm taking things too far. She informed me that I simply don't know enough about my Uncle Scott's past, and she doesn't think it's right for me to either. That was very upsetting because I don't think I can decide whether or not to trust Uncle Scott if they won't tell me the precise reason he was shunned by the family. Furthermore, I believe that as a mature adult, I am capable of handling the truth, so they shouldn't be afraid to approach me. From his actions thus far, I don't see any need to break up with him because he has been really kind to me. However, my mother stated that she was not happy about this and that the family was very upset with me. There wasn't much she could do to convince me otherwise if I had already made up my mind. She just hung up on me when I tried to speak with her, saying that she needed time to process everything. I'm feeling really mixed about what's happening right now. After my uncle passed on me for a partner position in the company and chose his son instead of me, I decided to join our rivals. Correct? Hello. Some people were perplexed as to how I was hired by Uncle Scott's company so fast, and the truth is that it was all just luck. He had been searching for a replacement for his CFO, who was set to retire in a few months anyhow. Fortunately, I sent him an email at the perfect moment, which is how I was able to seize this chance. The stars and planets seemed to be in alignment for me as well. Yes, I believe that some of you were curious about my Uncle Scott's situation prior to his estrangement from the family. In all honesty, my childhood was not particularly difficult. From what I could see, my dad, Uncle Brian, and Uncle Scott were always very close. I also knew that they had a major falling out, which is why Uncle Scott decided to leave the company and launch his own venture. However, I'm still not really sure what this was all about. I can't give you guys that information because I don't have it myself and no one wants to talk about it. But I always had a good relationship with him, and I believe I also mentioned that in my first post. Even now, when I emailed him to express my concern, he responded with such warmth and kindness. To be honest, I have no idea why my family thinks so poorly of him. He has been referred to by many names. He's been called cunning, narcissistic, egoistic, and other derogatory terms by them. However, I have never felt that he is any of those things when I have interacted with him. Simply put, I have no idea who to believe. Since I trusted my Uncle Brian, I truly don't want to make the same mistake by putting my trust in anyone else. And see where I ended up with that. I have to be extra cautious about these things, because I don't want Uncle Scott to experience the same thing. I'm not sure who to ask for advice either, as my mother isn't exactly happy with me at the moment. Additionally, it's too private and complex for me to discuss with my friends. First update. Hi there. 3 days have passed since people learned that I would be working for Uncle Scott, and following the initial outcry, they have simply stopped interacting with me. Now that I'm connected to Uncle Scott, and they're treating me the same way they've been treating him, I suppose this is reasonable. Sincerely, I still don't know what transpired between them all those years ago, but I've chosen my side and can't reverse it. I don't really care about their relationship's past, to be honest. I need a job, so it's not like I can just quit and go back to working with Uncle Brian. I require a large sum of money in order to support both myself and the lifestyle I have grown accustomed to. Of course, whatever the case may be, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm here right now. Uncle Scott seemed really sad when I told him about how the family was treating me like a pariah. But he told me that this was exactly the same thing that had happened to him. And with time, I'm going to get over it as well. Or, given that I am a member of the younger generation, and they might get in touch with me later, I might even be luckier than he is. But until then, I just have to tough it out and deal with it. Once again, I asked him what had happened that led to all of this, but he refused to talk about it. My mother is still not talking to me, which hurts the most. But I have been texting her every day and I have not received a response so far. And I'm going to be really busy with work in the next couple of days because I'm just starting here, and there is a lot of work that I have to catch up on, right now. If she wants to talk to me, then she can text me herself, but other than that, I'm not going to be reaching out to her anymore. Hello to the second update. So it's been 6 days since I started working with Uncle Scott, and things have been going pretty well. The paperwork to make me a partner in the company is still being processed, but I trust him implicitly. He has treated me with nothing but warmth and respect so far, and I guess I have to say that everybody in my family was wrong about him. He has been very transparent with me about everything that's going on. He has told me that since, unlike my previous company, they are not a private company, So he's going to have to get the board of directors to approve everything to do with me before I can finalize everything. But he told me not to worry about it because since he is the owner and CEO, it's just a formality at best. And I have nothing to worry about since I've already met most people associated with the company, and they all seem to really like me. Besides, they know about my previous work and they know that I'm worth it. So just like Uncle Scott told me too, I'm not too worried about this situation and I'm just going to focus on working. So things on the work front are going pretty well for me, but my personal life is a mess right now, to be honest. My mother and I have not spoken ever since that last conversation, and I can't even count how many days it has been since then, and I've been really lonely. Nobody else from the family has spoken to me either, and it is tough, but I'm just trying to deal with it. I do still have a few friends from Uncle Brian's company, and they have kept me updated on whatever is going on. Apparently they have already announced that I have left them, but they did not include the fact that I've left to work with Uncle Scott, probably because it would not reflect too well on the company. There's somebody in a position like mine quit to work with their direct competitors. They also made the announcement that Dean would be taking over as CEO in a couple of months after Uncle Brian retired, and he was also going to be a partner in the firm, and they are hosting a work party in his honor in a couple of days. As for the CFO position, which had been left when I left, it is being filled by one of the employees who had always had subordination problems with me. They probably did that on purpose just to piss me off. It just made me feel sad for them though. If that employee had problems with me, I'm pretty sure she's going to have problems with them in the future as well. But that's their issue to deal with now. Anyway, I spoke to my friends in the company and I told them that they were free to join me with Uncle Scott now, since we could offer them better salaries. Ultimately, it's up to them. But I can tell that some of them really want to work with me because they're not too confident about the changes taking place in the company, and they think it would be better for them to quit while they are ahead. So I've made the offer. Let's see who switches. Update 3. Hey, so it's been close to a month since I started working with Uncle Scott and things have been great. I am now officially the CFO and also a partner in the firm. I'm pretty happy about it, and even though my mother is still not speaking to me, I think I've moved on. There's also another piece of good news that some of my friends from my previous company have quit their jobs and have applied here so they can work with me. And Uncle Scott is pretty pleased with it. Uncle Brian, however, has found this move even more aggravating. And a couple of days ago, after almost 4 employees quit so that they could join us, he showed up at my house with Dane. I had just come back home when they started ringing the doorbell, and when I saw that it was them, I spoke to them through the intercom. I told them to clear out because I did not want to have any conversation with them about anything. I knew that they were here to discuss the fact that I had spoken to a couple of employees and they had been influenced to join me, but I told them that I had neither forced nor coerced anybody to do this. They had made this move of their own accord, and I knew that they wanted an excuse to blame me, but even they knew that this is not my fault. But Uncle Brian was out of control, and he started screaming at me from outside the door, saying that I was poaching employees from them, and it was just not fair, and that he would take legal action against me for influencing his employees. I'm pretty sure that that's not grounds for a lawsuit, but I just let him scream himself hoarse because I knew that there was no point in saying anything to him while he was screaming so loudly that he wouldn't even be able to hear me. When he finally seemed to run out of steam, I told him that I wanted him to clear out because otherwise they would be forcing my hand to call the cops. And already so many people were leaving the company. I'm pretty sure they did not want more people to leave, citing the fact that they seemed to be mentally unstable. When I said that, Dane piped up all of a sudden and said that this was no way to behave with somebody who had been there for me for so long after my father had passed away. He called me insensitive and selfish, saying that I had no respect for anything that his father had done for my family. I found that whole bit very pompous and ridiculous. I told him that I respected Uncle Brian just as much as he respected me. I also reminded him that my father had also worked very hard to bring this company to where it is now. And after his passing, I had also put in a lot of work. The only person who had never done anything was Dane, so he had no right to be here speaking up on this. At least Uncle Brian was worthy of being where he is right now, but he just got his position as a form of charity. Since Uncle Brian did not want him to leave the company and work anywhere else since it was a family business, Then I continued and told him exactly what Uncle Brian had said when he told me that he was offering the position of CEO to Dean, since he had asked for it and was not going to settle for anything less. In my original post, you guys might remember that I mentioned that my uncle had told me that the only reason he was offering this position to Dean and not me was because his son wanted it. And even though he knew that I deserved it more, he wanted to placate his son. He also said that he would only be the nominal head, but I would actually be running the show. And I remembered it clear as day, and I mentioned it to Dean, so he knew exactly where he stood with his father. And suddenly there was silence. I heard them bickering softly, and then I heard footsteps of them going away and pulling out of the driveway, so my duty was done. Now the two of them could duke it out, but at least they would leave me alone. The next day, I woke up to find out that both of them had blocked me, and I was quite delighted. Anyway, life is getting better now. I know that whatever's going on right now would have made my dad very furious, but at least I have the consolation of knowing that none of this was my fault. Uncle Brian grew greedy and kicked me out. So if there is someone to blame for the situation, it's him. I'm extremely clear about that now, so that nobody else can ever try to guilt trip me again into doubting myself. The only person I'm still holding out hope on is my mother. I truly do wish that she comes around someday because she and I have always had a terrific relationship, and especially when my father passed away. We have started bonding even more. I absolutely miss her every single day, and I keep thinking that maybe she will text me eventually. But so far, I have had no such luck. At least she hasn't blocked me yet, so maybe she's keeping the door open. I'm still trying to figure out what to do, but if I start missing her too much, I could try to get in touch with her. Revisit this. Hello everyone. It's been over 6 months since my previous post, and a lot has happened in that time. To begin with, Uncle Brian has formally retired, and Dean now runs the business. He hasn't changed anything thus far. He's just keeping things as they are. It doesn't really matter to me, but maybe things will turn out well for them after all. Many former colleagues have since moved to work for us, which I'm glad about because it allows me to see many familiar faces at my new workplace. I may finally have an explanation for why my mother and I haven't spoken to each other. I was having dinner and drinks with Uncle Scott and his wife a few weeks back. My aunt eventually left the room to get some rest, and I finally asked him while we were still speaking. I had developed a lot since then, and we were now co-workers. I felt compelled to find out what had gone wrong between him and his family for him to be cut off. At last, he revealed to me that years prior, on the day of our Thanksgiving dinner hosted at our home, my mother had attempted to initiate an affair with him. Without realizing what was about to happen, he followed her when she asked for assistance in the kitchen. She told him, though, that even though she was married to my dad, her eyes had always been on him, and that she wanted to go farther with him when they were alone in the kitchen. He attempted to move away from her, but my dad entered the kitchen just in time to see the two of them standing quite close. My mom became alarmed and began accusing him of attempting to initiate a romantic relationship with her. My dad lost his cool and threw Dean out of the house that day, but I don't recall this because I was in my room with Dean. They had informed me later that day that Uncle Scott had to depart due to an emergency at work. After that day, though, my mother made up a lot of other falsehoods to make this occurrence seem untrue to everyone. She even told my father and Uncle Brian that he had been plotting to create his own business and steal money from the company. Later, when he did not stand aside on his own, my dad and Uncle Brian confronted him about it and threatened to really mess him up. He made the decision to quit the company and launch his own venture, and he hasn't spoken to his family since. I came to the conclusion that it would be best for me to follow in his footsteps and cut ties with my family after learning of all of this. Finding out about my mother was really upsetting, but circumstances cannot be changed. This is the life I currently lead, and I have come to terms with it.